What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Arnies. We are three soups that would probably blow each other if Homelander told us to. I'm Matt Johnson. I'm really not surprised that many characters on this show want to put the Christ back in Christmas.
I'm Keith Baker, and you will never find me at a soup rally.
And I'm Austin Terry. And if I live in the boys' universe and I ever see Homelander walk anywhere near me, I'm turning around and leaving immediately.
Well, I don't know, Austin. You could, in the world of the boys, become a radicalized youth that loves Homelander. So maybe instead, when he walks on the premises, you run up and give him a hug, and then he kills you.
Yeah. Maybe I'm there chanting his name and loving him, and then he has his followers kill me with a baseball bat.
It's quite possible. It's quite possible. On today's show, of course, we are back once again to talk about The Boys. It's been a couple years since we talked about the flagship show, which whenever I realized that seemed really crazy to me. It doesn't seem like it's been 2 years since season 3, but I don't know, maybe I'm crazy. Probably helps that we took a little side trip last year with Gen V, the first kind of major spinoff of The Boys besides the quick little animated show they did. But yeah, Butcher and the crew are back to try and take out Homelander and inevitably fail for the 4th time in a row. We thoroughly enjoyed season 1 like the rest of the world. Felt that season 2 kind of really spun its wheels without going anywhere super interesting, but then really got stoked again with season 3. And of course also enjoyed Gen V along the way. At least for me, I enjoyed it way more than I even thought I would. So where will season 4 fall in there? I'm curious. We're going to talk today about if the 3-episode premiere is giving us hope or worry for the rest of the season. But before we get to that, Austin, I think you kind of teed me up pretty well earlier. I don't think we've talked about this when it comes to the boys in general. We've talked about maybe what our powers, if I recall, might be, what kind of heroes we could be in this world. Heroes, of course, in major quotation marks. But there's so many freak accidents that happen on this show where soups like either on purpose or accidentally kill innocent people. And then I feel like it'll always cut from that scene to like their like Fox News equivalent in the world of the boys going, yes, many people died today. And then they just give like some bullshit reason. Oh, there was an accident involving like lighting that like really hurt somebody's eyes. And then a bunch of people died on accident. And the whole world just believes it, I guess. So I want to know, what would your freak accident be in the world of the boys? You wake up one day, you have plans to go somewhere, you go there, and then for some reason or another, the boys are fighting the Seven, and then you die in the process. How do you think you will die in that scenario?
Yeah, I know exactly how I would die. You guys know I'm a big lake boy. I love being at the lake. And I think I would be at the lake hanging out. For whatever reason, the Deep would be there doing whatever the Deep does. Something freaky would happen, and the general public would get riled up trying to get away. And I think I would be out on the water, stuck behind a jet ski with the jet ski's propulsion spraying water into my mouth, kind of drowning me. And then at the same time, a boat would cross over my body and cut me in half with a propeller.
Nice. That's a good one. I can picture it right now.
That's like some Final Destination type stuff. Oh, man.
That's how all this stuff in the show is.
Yeah, it really is.
All the innocent people really do die in like Final Destination fashion.
I don't know how I would go. It would have to be in a really dumb way. Like drinking like a cup of coffee and like somebody that can shrink accidentally falls into my coffee. And then as I swallow like a sip of coffee, they expand again. And then my head just gets blown up immediately.
Then, of course, that soup would be like, shit, why'd you get in the way of my coffee?
Yeah, right.
Like, they'd blame it on you.
Yeah, right. It's like, I just like to bathe in coffee. I didn't know he was going to take a sip of it. Yeah.
I don't know why, but the first thing that popped in my head, I don't even go to these places a lot. I can't even really remember the last time I was at one, but I thought bowling alley for some reason. I feel like The Boys still has a bowling alley set piece like in it somewhere coming up, whether it be this season or the 5th and final season coming soon. But yeah, I want to say that like I want to die in the middle of like a big conflict between Homelander and the boys, where it's like they're all running around screaming, kind of like a scene that we'll get into later in this discussion that involved an ice rink. Homelander's just kind of chasing some of the boys' members down. And for some reason, I just foresee a true Rube Goldberg machine where a bowling ball is like used to like maybe throw at Homelander or something. He dodges it, and then it like hits like a shelf, and then that shelf breaks and something on it flings and like somehow lands on the lane. It like messes with the machinery, and I just like foresee like a bowling pin, a rogue bowling pin getting spun up and just full force, just flying straight through my head. And I don't know why that's what came to me immediately when I asked this question, but I guess maybe that tells you something about me. I don't know.
I think also if it's the sick, like twisted humor world of The Boys, you could also find yourself like bent over to pick up a bowling ball and then sodomized by a bowling ball.
That's actually
pin.
probably more accurate. In fact, you can go ahead and write that down. That's what's going to happen.
And it cuts to Homelander. He just has like some corny line. He's like, strike.
But yeah, let's start to kind of move into the show here. So the little log line for season 4, if you're a Boys fan or not and are curious, this takes place 6 months after the events of the previous season. Victoria Newman is closer than ever to the Oval Office and under the control of Homelander, who is having to consolidate his power since he is on trial for murder. With only months left to live on the other side of things, Billy Butcher must find a way to work with the boys who are kind of fed up with his lies if they want to save the world and stop the Supes once and for all. But yeah, with that, let's go ahead and just get into it, guys. Did you have any, excitement or hype going into this? Were you ready for more Boys? And then, of course, let me know your non-spoiler thoughts on the premiere of The Boys Season 4.
Yeah, I actually was pretty hyped coming into this season, especially with how well that first season of Gen V was. Just so streamlined, very focused on its central plot, and, ends up leaving you in a fun place for The Boys Season 4 with their post-credit scene. So heading into Season 4, I was kind of ready to pick up right where Gen V left off. And I think just getting into this general premiere, I still think there's a lot of pieces of The Boys there that I like. I've been enjoying it overall for the most part, but I have found the general premiere itself pretty meandering across these 3 episodes and not as focused of a story as Gen V was. So there's a lot of side plots were going on that feel very familiar and not new. There's character conflicts that have been coming back up that I thought were at least somewhat resolved to the point where we wouldn't be rehashing a lot of things that we've rehashed already in the past 3 seasons. On the flip side of that, though, I think everything going on with Homelander and the Seven has been the most interesting part to me of this season, and that has felt new and fresh. So I think there's a lot that are working. I think if you're a Boys fan, you'll like this season, and I'm excited to see where it ends up. However, I am a little cautiously nervous that we're in for almost season 2 vibes, where there's a lot of meandering things going on, and then when this season ends, it's are we really in that different of a place than where the season started?
Yeah, I'm pretty much in the same camp. It does feel like, it does pretty much pick up right where we left off in season 3. There was no big time jump, it feels like, so there's not some huge transition that you're kind of hyped up for, or maybe whoa, this is a year has passed or 6 months have passed. This is crazy. It doesn't seem like it's been that long since we left off of the season 3 finale with Homelander killing the guy in the rally or the protest or whatever. I'm kind of with you, Austin. There's some things going on with some of the characters in The Boys, the Boys specifically, that I'm kind of confused about. Maybe some things I forgot about. I'll be completely honest. Going into this season, I was like, I forgot so much. This is what happens when we go 2-3 years between seasons. I forget things, and then it slowly starts kind of creeping back into my memory as it goes on. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I forgot that was her motive.
I definitely had to go watch a YouTube recap to get caught up on this season.
I probably should have. And then things started kind of coming back to me as it went along. But yeah, going back to the characters real quick. Yeah, there's some things going on that I had forgot about, or maybe some things that I'm confused about, and then we're going to get into it later. As far as things that are consistent throughout The Boys for me that I'm still loving is all of the surprise factors that come along the way, as far as that could be kills, any sort of action type moments, or any just badass character moments. Those are still there for me, and I think those have definitely been shown in these first 3 episodes. I think right now I'm still enjoying it. It's consistent. I do hope it's building up to something. I hope we're not going to have a flatter season, like season 2, which that season 2 is kind of like that one for me. I think season 3 I think all 3 of us were pretty high on, coming back from season 2. So I do hope this one doesn't kind of go at too slow of a pace. I do hope it is building up to something even scarier and bigger than before. So, but yeah, I'm enjoying it so far. I really have no idea what's going to happen or where anything is leading. This show can be pretty unpredictable at times.
Yeah, I think I would echo both of your guys' sentiments there. I think what you said, Keith, is the show's very consistent. And with The Boys, I think that's always had good and bad things about it. I think it's consistently solid throughout. But it's even in the good seasons, I do think there are always side storylines that are consistently meandering. And you do wonder what the point of them are. And I think more often than not, I think they're just there to kind of beef up and give us more of the characters. But then even then, by the end of the season, I'm kind of left do I still really know that much or care about Frenchie and Kimiko? I like them fine, but it feels like they're always trying to kind of sell us on them, and for some reason, 4 seasons in, at least for me, it still feels like there's a disconnect, and there's some things we'll have to talk about with this season where maybe I didn't remember how they ended in season 3, just as an example of what I'm talking about, kind of the meandering stuff, but I was like, oh, is that where we ended? Now I'm confused, but whatever. It's not a major deal. I think I'm a little bit higher on season 4 as of now, and I think I'm leaning towards being super hopeful for this season as opposed to worried at all, and I think it's combined with the fact that they gave us 3 episodes right off the bat, so we're already at the point where we only have 5 left, and I was actually really excited to see like the premiere kind of coincide with the news that they were renewed for a 5th and final season, because that made me go, okay, I feel like season 4 then really has to kind of ramp up and build a lot and end in an interesting place, because I mean they're not going to be able to like jam the entire ending of this into like one final season, so it makes me feel like we're going to go to some interesting places. And yeah, other than that, I'm kind of feeling similar to you guys. I think the 7 stuff and the Vought stuff so far is kind of maybe the most interesting it's been for me, so I'm really enjoying that stuff. And then the boys stuff kind of feels like how it always does. Like for once, actually, I'm really liking the Huey and Starlight stuff, so that's like a good positive. I really hate the push and pull that they've had in previous seasons. It feels like we're not getting that for once, which I like. Really enjoying the Butcher stuff. Really enjoying the Mother's Milk stuff. It's just like, like Frenchie and Kimiko have to have their side stories that have never really super hit for me. So, there's good stuff, there's meandering stuff, there's side stories outside of that where I'm like, okay, we're spending a lot of time on this, but, we'll see. I think right now I'm very hopeful for the rest of the season, and I tore through this 3-episode premiere, and I had a really good time.
Yeah, I think the only reason I may not be as hopeful as you for the rest of this season is because this is season 4 now, so, and knowing that there is a 5th and final season on the way, it does feel like our plot should just be really centrally focused on the boys and the Homelander conflict, and we are still, like, it's wild to me that in season 4 we're still spending time watching Huey deal with his, like, childhood stuff, and it's like we're 4 seasons in, we've done all this stuff before. Sure. So I feel like we're wasting a little bit of time. I hope that was just for the premiere, and the back half of this gets like a lot more focused, and I think we are like heading to that. We're still not getting into the Homelander conflict as fast as I would like. Like, it feels like every season we build up to it, and it ends us on this like really high note, and then we kind of have to reclimb that mountain again every time we start a new season of this show.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and I kind of, made a little joke about it where I'm sure, for the 4th season in a row, it's going to be like, hey guys, we just thought of this really crazy plan halfway through the season. We're finally going to bring down Homelander. And then I'm sure we'll get to the finale, and it's going to be like, oh, dang it, didn't work again, but he'll let us go for some reason, and we'll try again next season. And maybe since it's the last one, we'll get him that time. But yeah, I'm with you. I think season 3 ended on such a high with that final shot of him. I always loved seeing him, like, kind of fantasize about killing all these people that he's, like, talking to, and then at the end of season 3, he finally did it, but then he just gets cheered on. Even his son's like, whoa, that's cool. And then, yeah, there are some storylines that kind of kick off season 4 where you're like, oh, interesting. Like, should we be spending more time on the Homelander stuff since that was kind of a big ending? But it seems like even a lot of, like, the characters that are closer to him are kind of brushing it under the rug. There's like, yeah, you're on trial, can't associate with you. And then they just wrap that up, and you're like, oh, okay. So, and then we just, like, move on, and then you're right. But then now it doesn't feel like the boys are as in, like, in that story. So I hear you. It's weird. It does feel like we're climbing the mountain a little bit, but maybe I'm just a little bit more on for the ride. But yeah, I think before we say anything else, we're probably going to veer into spoiler territory. So if you have not finished the 3-episode premiere of The Boys Season 4, or if you haven't started at all yet, definitely recommend you go do that, and then come on back to listen to the rest of our episode, because we're going to be talking about all things spoilers. All right, everybody, welcome to Spoiler Territory for The Boys Season 4. Guys, before we get into all of the points that we want to really dissect a bit more, let's talk about the cast, crew, and critical reception talk, because we have some new characters joining here.
All right, so The Boys Season 4 is once again created and showrun by Eric Kripke, who is most well known for creating all 3 seasons of The Boys and Gen V, as well as Revolution and Supernatural. It's directed by Phil Grishia, Kevin Gaviola, and Fred Toy. And, of course, based on The Boys by Garth Ennis and Derek Robinson.
And going through our cast, we have our normal crew from The Boys and Vought are back. This season, we are joined by Nathan Mitchell and he is the body and the voice of Black Noir this time around. We got Susan Bradley as Sister Sage, Valerie Curry as Firecracker, Jeffrey Dean Morgan as Joe Kessler, Rosemary Dewitt as Daphne Campbell, Tilda Swinton as Ambrosius the Octopus, and we got Will Ferrell as Coach Brink. All right, guys, there's an interesting addition to our cast and crew. Any positives, any negatives? What do we have?
Yeah, I'm going to give my highlight to Susan Bradley joining the cast and crew as Sister Sage. It's been a really nice change of dynamic to have a character join the boys who is not scared of Homelander and is willing to stand up to him, and also like pretty scary with how smart she is and how well she thinks things out, and is almost like a political strategist and knows how to push certain groups of people in one direction. So I've been enjoying her dynamic, watching her like go head to head with each one of the member of the Seven, and like the broader Vought company has been fun too. So I can't wait to see more of Sister Sage and see how much screen time she gets this season.
Yeah, same. I think she's probably one of my favorite things about this new season so far. I really do hope her character lasts a while too. I hope she doesn't eventually piss Homelander off too much to where he's just gonna zap her one day. But we'll see. I am liking her character though, for all the reasons you said, Austin. As far as our new cast, everybody's pretty good. Like Valerie Curry as Firecracker, she's great. I have no idea what's gonna happen with her. What a interesting, I guess, dynamic. As far as like this like country type girl with a podcast, it's just hilarious. Jeffrey Dean Morgan, also good as Joe Kessler. We haven't seen too much of him so far, but I'm excited to see where his what kind of role his character is going to play. And then everybody else, I would say, from the main cast is staying pretty consistent. Anthony Starr as Homelander, kills it as usual.
Yeah, from the OG cast, I'll call out somebody that I always call out, and then somebody that's always been around that's been really good, but I feel is just being integrated a lot better this season and used a lot better, and the performance is great. And the latter, of course, is Laz Alonso. I think is really getting a lot more good stuff to do as Mother's Milk, and I'm really liking his portrayal, kind of having to take over kind of the leader of the boys role. But yeah, I'm just really liking what he's doing. And then, I mean, I'm sure every time we talk about the boys, I say this, so I'm not doing it on purpose, but I just can't get over it. Chase Crawford, guys, as the Deep is so goddamn funny to me. Everything he says.
The idea that in canon of this show, he's best friends with Shia LaBeouf is like the funniest joke they've made so far.
I was dying laughing at that line. And then it almost felt, I mean, I think the reason why I think he's so good is like everything he says like sounds and feels improvised to me. He's like, yeah, Shia's one of my best friends. He wants to put me in Honey Boy too, but the script's just not there yet. It's like, what does that mean? It's so funny. And then, yeah, I'm kind of with you guys on the new cast. I think Susan Bradley's definitely the standout. I'm very interested, in particular, out of the new gang to see where Sister Sage goes. And yeah, just like I loved how all the characters were saying things like, yeah, she doesn't have powers, right? Like she's the smartest person. I get that, but she doesn't have powers. Let's just fucking like grab her and bag her, and then like figure out what we need to know. And then, but you just watch how quickly in a 3-episode premiere she's already enacted this plan that seems like it's going to be pretty successful and pretty devastating. I think it's going to have pretty like big consequences, especially since this story revolves around like Newman and the presidency and the Oval Office. I could very easily see that like the Sage kind of plan storyline, maybe even leading to somebody on the Seven becoming president or something wild. I don't know, but really liking that dynamic with Homelander in particular. I like that he seems to listen to her, which is kind of a different dynamic than we've seen him with anybody before. Maybe the closest would be like Elizabeth Shue in season 1, but yeah, I'm really liking their dynamic, so she's stand out to me.
Yeah, and with Jeffrey D. Morgan joining as Joe Kessler, I'm surprised how small of a part that's been so far, but I gotta imagine that character role is getting much larger since Jeffrey D. Morgan has that star power, and joining in a side role would be very surprising to me.
Yeah, I'm still wondering, like, not in a bad way, but I'm wondering why he signed on to do this, because obviously he doesn't need to. So I'm curious what this role, kind of what the meat on the bones might be. I hope it goes to some interesting places.
Okay, so speaking of all these new characters, obviously a lot of time is spent kind of welcoming our new characters into the fold, and we do meander away quite a bit from the broader plot, or quite a bit from the main plot like I touched on in the beginning. So Matt, I know you said you're still a little hopeful. Keith, you're closer to me. how are you guys feeling just in general now that we can go a little deeper into spoilers? Like, is the meandering too much for you? Are there certain storylines you feel like are wasted time this season? Overall, just let's go a little deeper on the meandering nature of this premiere.
Yeah, I'm curious what your thoughts are on it, Keith. But I mean, when we say meandering, the two things that come to my mind, and I feel bad saying it because I do like the actors that play Frenchie and Kimiko, but I don't know. It's hard to articulate. It's just like every season they pair those two together. I like their chemistry. And I feel like they usually do end up getting like some like side story where there's something specific that like those two are focused on. And I feel like more often than not in the past, it's probably to endear us to those characters, right? I mean, that's probably why you would do that. And I like them. I like them fine. Like I said, I like their chemistry, but I'm feeling like that meandering pattern again, where it's like, okay, these two are literally just walking out of like meetings with the boys team and they're just doing their own thing. And for a good reason. I like that it ties into Kimiko's past, but like so far I just, I feel bad. It's just, I wish more time was being spent elsewhere because so far I just don't really care. And it just feels like I'm feeling the same pattern where it's like, Frenchie's so fucked up. He has this crazy past. Now he has to deal with it. Kind of like you mentioned with Huey, Austin. Kind of like, oh, we're 4 seasons in and now we're kind of diving into his childhood trauma. Is this the best use of our time? I don't know. And then the other one, but I'm also like, with the second one, I'm more interested in what the outcome of it will be. But as we know, even going back to season 1, A-Train has always been a character that feels like could flip, will potentially flip, and then doesn't for one reason or another. I mean, that's literally been happening since season 1, and it's happening again here. It does feel different, and I feel like the writing is supporting it better, and I'm more interested in what the outcome of his story will be this season.
Yeah, the main thing that for me too is even with Huey and now his mom coming in, like it's and now even and then also with Kimiko going into the Rising Sun like cult stuff, like I'm just surprised that these plot points that were closed in season 1 are now like reopening again. Like it's wild to me that we're choosing to do that. So that stood out. And then there's also just been dynamics with like the boys in the first episode do a mission. One of them goes off the rails and fucks it up. Kimiko gets drunk in episode 2 and messes up a mission, and then Frenchie gets high and messes up a mission in episode 3. So all of them like doing self-detrimental things to fuck up their missions. That's also stuff that like we had kind of gotten away from in season 3. They were working better as a team, and now we're like digressing back into stuff that was coming up in season 1 and season 2.
Yeah, I would say you guys both nailed it. That's probably my biggest problem with this season so far is Kimiko and Frenchie. Yeah, because I'm loving what they're doing with MM. I like that MM is in charge. He's like on his game too. Like he's not messing around. He's dialed in. He's got all the contacts of the CIA. And like joking aside, he also looks very different too. I remember going online and people thought he was recast because he shaved his beard and he lost some weight.
I do miss the beard, but he looks great.
He looks great.
The beard a little though.
But he's like dialed in. He looks super professional now. So yeah, I wish. Yeah, I wish the rest of the team would fall in place with that. Like it'd be cool if they were all like a good formulated unit. But instead, yeah, you have these two characters, Kimiko and Frenchie, messing it up. And yeah, I don't really care about their past anymore. Like you said, Austin, that was closed already. We don't really. What's the purpose of bringing that up now? We don't need any of his like drug-induced hallucinations and all that kind of stuff. It just doesn't. It's not interesting to me at this point in the show. Yeah, seems like a waste of screen time. They could be filling that with anything else.
Yeah, even with Butcher a little bit too. With him now having an expiration date on his life and like having that nice moment with Ryan in episode 3, I like that moment. But we've seen Butcher do this so many times where he like gets really focused and like doesn't care who he throws aside or who he hurts, and then he kind of comes back to himself and has to apologize. Like I've seen Butcher apologize countless times on this show. I don't need another like long episode between him and Mother's Milk doing that. So there's just some repetitive natures I hope we get away from as the season continues.
I hear ya. Yeah, I mean, you're definitely not wrong. But for whatever reason, maybe it's like I said with the A-Train stuff again. We've seen the same A-Train thing like 15 times, but I just feel like in that case it's being done better, and I feel like I'm I'm liking the Butcher stuff more, even though it is familiar for sure. I like that the characters, with the exception of Huey, I guess, like, really aren't kind of, you know, putting, like, they'll save him if he's about to die, but they're not really putting up with him in terms of, like, we'll work with you on the boys. And I am liking his dynamic with every other character, and to that point, yeah, you're right, Austin. I mean, what he did with Ryan was a very sweet and endearing scene. And I like that storyline's not done. Like, he did drug him, and then, like, you know, we just, now Homelander's angry. Like, I'm glad that we're not there yet. We'll see what happens with that. But I liked Butcher being like, you know, I think we can kind of just talk to him more and kind of convince him to come to our side. And I did like that scene because I was really nervous. I was feeling probably what you felt like. Whenever he was potentially going to betray Huey, as Annie calls out for the 12th time, like, he's going to, like, leak Huey's info to Newman in order to, like, form a truce and, like, get some info from her. And then I'm glad that he didn't do that and then just sent her a butthole pic instead of the actual file. So I'm like that. I'm really glad that it seems like, as of now, we're not doing the annoying, like, Huey and Butcher bullshit again. At least that's one thing I'm feeling a bit better about. It seems like they're in a chill place. I like that Huey's sticking up for him too. But yeah, I hear you. It's the weird thing with the boys. Like we've said, we like the show, but every season there's so many familiar beats. I guess maybe I'm just enjoying the season a little bit more so far because it feels like the familiar beats are just being handled a little bit better, at least for me, in terms of how they've done it before.
So with MM and the Butcher relationship, Butcher does point out in episode 2 that MM's not cut out to be in charge of this team, and he's going to walk them into a trap. And that's kind of exactly what happens. So do you feel like the show is setting up that MM is going to have to step down and be reporting into Butcher again? Or do you think MM's going to be able to maintain control of the team?
Yeah, because, like, MM seems to have better relations with his bosses than Billy Butcher did. Like, everybody couldn't stand Billy. They were annoyed by him, even though that because he was kind of a wild card. But he kind of had to be to get the job done. And like you said, Austin, Billy was a lot, I guess, better equipped strategically than MM is. MM is just not as experienced as a leader on that front yet, but MM does seem to be more liked by his CIA relations and all that.
They seem to like and tolerate him a lot more, but then I think maybe what Butcher was getting at is, but where are the results though?
Exactly.
It's like, yeah, they fucking hated me, but I was able to get them, like, some results. So I'm very curious, where the MM stuff goes. Yeah.
So we touched on where season 3 left off with Homelander murdering the guy at the rally, and then season 4 opens and he's on trial for that, but that gets resolved at the end of episode 2. So were you surprised that didn't play a larger plot point?
I was surprised, but I'm not in a bad way. The reason why I'm liking it is because I think, like, the one major story kind of, like, consequence this season after that is now we have the Starlighters versus, are they called the Homelanders? I know they call them Patriots. Are they called is it the Starlighters versus the Homelanders?
And then the Starlighters.
Okay, whatever. You guys know what I mean. But now even though Homelander was found not guilty, as I think we all assumed would probably happen, and it happens, relatively quickly by the end of episode 2, I feel like this whole, like, butting heads of not only Starlight and Homelander as characters, but, like, their respective factions that have, like, slowly built up. That's why I'm still invested, because this does feel a bit different and new for the boys, and it feels like a direct result of Homelander killing that guy at the rally. So I'm liking that element of the transition from season 3. It feels kind of natural. And yeah, I like we said earlier, I like that it's a 6-month gap because it feels like this has happened in an organic way that's kind of engrossing to me. I find interesting so far.
Yeah, I agree. I was surprised that the trial itself wrapped up, but what came out of it I think is more interesting. So I'm excited to see those two groups butt heads. It's also just this show has always done a good job of, like, mirroring real life in twisted ways, and so, like, the commentary it does on, like, current state in real life is also fun too.
Yeah, I thought we were going to at least get some courtroom scenes, but we just get the verdict, which
basically.
Yeah.
Which
I was okay with. At first, I was like, man, I wish they would have shown Homelander as the defendant in court with a lawyer.
But, I'm sure that would have been good. But I like it because also I feel like in the past we've probably said this when we're talking about The Boys or even Gen V, but I feel like at times you wonder, So Homelander, I know he's this god in this world, and obviously he has this image. I mean, we're the audience, so we know what he's actually doing. But of course, until he killed that guy at the rally, and most people just assumed, oh, he is actually a hero. He is saving people. But I think, like, the three of us are always like, but he knows the boys are coming after him. He's very privy to their plans. He even fucking meets with and, like, chats with Butcher sometimes. So it's like, why doesn't he just kill them? Like, is it just like a weak reason of like, oh, like the Joker, but you're too much fun or something? But it's not that with him. So it was kind of always like, why isn't he killing them? And I think so far this season has like done a really good job with that, because he can't kill Starlight now. I mean, that would ruin him. He can't just like go and kill her now that she has this support. But I did like on the like opposite of that. I loved in episode 3, like if Homelander had seen Huey, for example, in episode 1, whenever they're infiltrating that like gala, the presidential thing, like Homelander couldn't have killed Huey there. But I loved in episode 3 at the ice rink, the second he like feels Huey's sweat on him, he's going for the kill. He's trying to kill him.
Yeah.
And and it made sense in that moment. So I think this season is really like finding that good balance that I've been like waiting for, because like it adds to like the tension and like the thrills of the season of like, when can he kill, when can't he? So far I think they're doing a good job with that.
I like that moment too, and it was a very like tense scene of watching Huey try to escape, and it's fun that like A-Train is also now coming into the fold now, and every now and then he kind of gives, like with Huey he kind of gave the boys an edge because he was able to get Huey out of there. But I'm wondering now that like the Temp V plot is gone, who are we going to see Homelander go up against in a fight? Because he still is very overpowered. And kind of whenever Homelander gets involved, all the boys can really do is run, which is a little familiar from season 1. It's still scary, of course, and they do a good job of making Homelander feel really powerful. But I'm just wondering, who is Homelander actually going to go up against in this season?
I mean, do you think is it too early to say the end of this season is Ryan? I mean, they've already had lines where Homelander is talking about, here are the 2 new members of the 7. I know there's one more seat left, but, call me old-fashioned. I'm keeping that seat warm for my son, Ryan. So they're already, like, setting, like, that kind of stuff up, and now that even in, like, the first 3 episodes, we already have Ryan, Butcher can be an idiot sometimes. I'm kind of with him. It seems like we could pretty easily get this kid over just by having more conversations. But do you think this season ends with that? Is it Ryan versus Homelander, and then, I don't know, whatever happens with that, maybe that is how the final season ends, or maybe the boys have to like fully come together and they do find a way to kill him, whether it be like the Gen V like a virus that Newman knows about, like whenever that gets there. But yeah, I guess anyway, sorry, I'm just like rambling now, but my question is, to your point, do you think it's Ryan like this season specifically?
I could see that being the cliffhanger for this season, where like maybe Homelander's got the boys all cornered and he's about to laser them, and then Ryan kind of steps down and blocks it or something, and then that's the end. Like you see Homelander rage.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, going back to your question from earlier, why doesn't Homelander just kill all these people? I do kind of wonder that with him and Butcher all the time. Like, he knows where Butcher lives. He finds out Ryan is there.
I think that's for Ryan, though. I think Homelander knows if he kills Butcher, he loses Ryan for good. I am curious, though, at the end of episode 3, he talks to, like, his selves, and they're saying you got to kill your love. So is he going to now maybe try to kill Ryan, like, kill that humanity part of him?
Yeah, we'll see. We've been talking about, like, with Frenchie and Kimiko, and I guess even Huey, to it, like, this season's already dealing with a lot of past trauma. I mean, season 3, the end of this premiere, literally ends with him talking into the mirror once again, like the shattered version, and all of his selves agree that you have to go back to the past. So it seems like this season will, to some degree, deal with what actually did Homelander go through as a kid, like the pre-Godolkin University, like the Gen V testing that we found out about, like what was his stuff like. So I guess we'll see. I also just think, I know I'm probably contradicting myself, but I do like that episode 1 reminded me whenever they had that great like tense scene in the kitchen whenever Butcher goes to see Ryan, but then Homelander walks in and he realizes that he has a tumor in his head. And he's just like, oh, it's a shame we're not going to have our big final fight that, like, we promised each other. I do think Homelander was serious about that. I think he was like, I want to have, like, a crazy final duel with you. So that's also probably why he hasn't killed Butcher yet.
Yeah, because Homelander on some level has to be bored. He has all this power, and no one he can actually go up against to see what happens if I get pushed to the extreme. Like, what's the power I can get to?
And I think that probably transitions into the Sister Sage stuff. I mean, that's kind of basically what he tells her right off the bat, is just like, I spent my entire life like climbing to the top of Vought, and now I'm here, and God, it's so fucking boring. I'm just surrounded by idiots that won't even challenge me. And I don't even know if I even want them to challenge me, but I wish they would sometimes because it's fucking annoying. So, and then I like when he's like, I just want to have this world that, Ryan can thrive in. And she's like, I mean, would you be happy in that one? And he's like, probably not, but it might be better than this one. So he is bored. So I think that's also probably why, he and Butcher have a good time. Also, before we transition to Sister Sage, was it really fucking weird multiple times this season to see Homelander, I think for the first time, either without his shirt on or in civilian clothes? Really weird.
Yeah, and a baseball cap.
I loved it. I love seeing him in the baseball cap, just going over to Sister Sage's apartment.
Just full of gray pubes.
With Sister Sage, though, and then also the broader kind of Seven and Bach crew, we do have a new dynamic where Sister Sage is willing to almost tell Homelander what to do and stand up to him. But then also we have Homelander almost challenging Ashley and the rest of the Seven to stand up to him more. So how do we think that changes? Ashley almost leaves and then gets scared and shreds her resignation letter. So she's clearly sticking around. Do you guys think, like, is the Deep going to try to stand up to Homelander more? And obviously the Deep is like all the way in. A-Train might flip, but it is interesting that Homelander, even before he got Sister Sage, was telling them, like, you guys will do whatever I say and this is pointless.
Yeah. It sparks like another prediction in me with A-Train. I could see A-Train getting killed. He's going to be like the big death. Maybe this season
make it
next.
out of this show. I do think he if we're asking that question, I do think he flips, but I mean, we already know the issues he has. Isn't he still dying like every time he uses his powers or something? Like, whatever happens, I do ultimately think it'll probably be Homelander that kills him. But yeah, he's not making it out, but I do think he'll flip. Yeah.
Especially since they have his family kind of coming back in now and making him feel ashamed. Yeah. He's already saved the boys twice now, so it seems like he might already be flipped and is just not willing to like admit to it yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I do think going back just to answer your question real quick though, as far as everybody else standing up to Homelander, yeah, I could see Sister Sage kind of igniting that in everybody, like, oh, okay, we're okay to do this now. We don't have to kiss his ass as much. I could.
On the flip side, though, I could also see like Homelander saying Sister Sage gets to do this because she's useful and she's furthering my goals, but like maybe the Deep stands up to him for something stupid and he just lasers him.
Yeah, like you said, Keith, I mean, I'm right there with you. I think it's not only because of a super intriguing character, but also I think the performance is so good. I do wonder how long Sister Sage, or I guess, sorry, as she prefers, just Sage, lasts in this show. Is this just like a one-season run? Because based on her role and like what she's doing, standing up to Homelander, you're right. He says like, I'm not as smart as you, but I am smart enough to listen to you. And so far, for the most part, he is. He has had some missteps, showing up to Ryan's like staged save, as they call it, which I thought was crazy. So he doesn't always listen, but I am curious. I mean, how far does it go? Does she like, do or say something that then means she has to die? But at least she's useful, so you're right. And then speaking of the Deep, I'm also very curious where this kind of, connection with the Deep goes. I mean, not only does this premiere end with them hooking up after almost watching Transformers 2 and talking about Honey Boy 2 and eating a blooming onion, but she was also the one, to your point, Austin, I think, she was the one that in the elevator was like, hey, that idea you had about going to the save and, the family friendly thing, that was a good idea. You should do that. Also, why are you letting Ashley talk to you that way? And that directly leads to him actually kind of giving us like season 1, episode 1, like creepy, scary, Deep vibes, and like now Ashley's scared. So I do wonder where that goes too, because they've spent enough time on that. So yeah, lots of questions with kind of the Sage dynamic. She's very quickly integrated herself into the Seven, and she was the one that said that she chose Firecracker. So I mean, a lot of power very fast.
Yeah, I think Sage and Deep hooking up. I don't see Sage. Sage doesn't seem like someone who like gives into her desires unless it is something that's calculated and planned. So she's clearly got like an ulterior goal with hooking up with the Deep. It also does pan down and you see that bloody needle, so I think she might have killed his octopus.
I do remember seeing that.
I wanted to ask
that was.
You guys that. I kind of felt like an idiot. I was like, whenever it panned down, I just didn't know what I was looking at. I mean, obviously it was like a needle sharp looking thing. I didn't know what I was supposed to take away from that.
It looked like a doctor's instrument where they like puncture a bone. That's what it looked like to me.
Okay.
So I think she maybe just like went in and shanked the octopus.
Yeah, I have no idea. Yeah, that was one of those weird things where I love a good like pan down to like show a reveal of something, but I'll admit I didn't know what to take away from it. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. I do think Sage is going to play this part for a while as Homelander's almost
so.
like advisor, but I do think she's going to see an opening at some point, like for more power, and maybe she might take it. And that's what
also
she's
the
gonna
interesting
do,
thing because she doesn't seem to want the power. She doesn't want to be on the Seven, but she does. She does believe the rhetoric that Homelander believes about being the evolved species, and like we should, have a world that like caters to us because we're better than humans. So that's the connection. Like right now, but she doesn't want power. She doesn't want to be on the Seven. So I'm kind of, with Yuki, I'm wondering, does that change over the course of the season? Maybe she does. I don't know.
I think she believes what Homelander believes, but I don't know if she necessarily believes in Homelander. Like, I don't think she's fully bought in with Homelander.
Good point.
I think if she sees an opportunity to put herself in control and maybe furthering in this new era of superheroes in control, like, I think that's her ultimate goal, is she thinks, I'm so smart, I should be the one running things.
That's a good call. Like she sees that he's like spending a lot of time like going back to like his childhood home and like he's like traumatized and reliving this stuff, and she's like, oh, okay. We believe the same thing, but you're actually weaker than I thought and dumber than I thought. So like I'm going to be the one that does this, and then he might kill her for that or something.
Yeah, I think she kind of thinks he's dumb and pathetic.
Yeah.
Which is true. But he's also powerful, so that's the one edge up he has.
Which is also the person you don't want to have all that power, is someone who's insecure.
Yeah. But I mean, I feel like that also leads into like, maybe this is like a sign of like maybe good pacing of the show with some of their better storylines, because I feel like that also leads into like the Newman and presidency storyline when it comes to Homelander and kind of the power he possesses and the knowledge he possesses. But I loved whenever he first goes up to Newman and it's like, hey, remember our deal we had? Like, you and I are still chill, right? And then she's like, no, you murdered someone and you're on trial. Like, any deal we had, I can't fulfill that anymore. And then watching both him and then I guess with the help of Sage kind of like weasel their way back into her good graces, not by her own volition, but like now they're trying to like convince her to come out as like a soup and what all that entails. Like I'm very curious where Homelander ends this season in regards to Newman. Is it she having the most power, or is it having even more control over her and kind of the Oval Office type deal? I'm not quite sure yet, but I think it's going to have scary implications.
Yeah, and Sage does say in that meetup that she has her plans to invoke the 25th Amendment, which is where you can declare the current president unfit and put the vice president in control. So she has a plan to get Newman into the presidency, which is her ultimate goal. And then she wants Newman to reveal herself as a soup and invoke policies that put soups in more control. Like, I think one of them was like make all local law enforcement have a local soup there that they report into, which is just like putting all control of like the military and stuff under the soups.
Yeah, I loved how the president-elect, or not president-elect, but the guy running for president is trying to put in place. He knows Newman's motives and who she is, and I like that scene whenever he's bringing up all those bills that he wants to pass to suppress the soup's power, and she just has kind of, absolutely, sir, I totally agree. She has to go along with it all. I don't know how that's going to play out. Yeah.
And I think they're already president at this point. I think in the first episode they were winning. They won.
Maybe
because that's why they're trying to invoke policy.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess
and I think
right.
when she's at the ice rink, they say like Madam Vice President.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I wasn't paying attention to that, but yeah, that's another thing that maybe I forgot about from season 3. I did remember the scenes of like Newman like first becoming like the VP elect, but I didn't remember her relationship with Singer. I want to say is his name, the guy going for president. I didn't remember that he was firmly with like Mallory in her camp in the CIA, and that she was maybe not aware of that to a degree. I don't remember if she was aware of it or not. So yeah, that was something that I had forgotten about that was interesting to kind of see. Like whenever he popped up in that scene with Mallory and Mother's Milk, I was like, oh, Okay, I did not remember this. So, yeah. Some interesting things there, too. But he's also probably somebody that we can go ahead and mark down as he'll be dead by the end of this.
Well, and remember, Newman originally was like a mole that
Right.
Stan put onto that like superhero task force. So that's why her and Huey got so close, is because she was leading that orchestration to like hold Supes accountable for their actions, but she secretly was popping heads to advance her own legislation that benefited Bot.
Yeah, because she's like Stan, and like Giancarlo Esposito is like her like weird father figure. But I also did forget that like she and Huey actually were close, so I do wonder where their relationship kind of ends. I did believe her in episode 1 when she was saying all that stuff to him about like wanting to reveal that to him. So yeah, there's lots of potential like relationships and dynamics that I think have potential to end strongly this season. So I'm very curious about that.
So on the note of lots of ways it could go, you do have Butcher, who I think has 6 months to live. So where do you think he goes this season? Does he die this season? Or I feel like there's no way they go into season 5 without Carl Urban attached to the show.
Nah, he'll make it to the end. Like, I would even go as far as to say he'll make it to season 5, episode 8, assuming they do 8 episodes like usual. But I do think he dies at the end of the show. Probably major part, if not directly responsible for Homelander dying. But yeah, I mean, I guess there's a chance to find a cure for him. But even though he always has like these, I think especially this season, he has more endearing moments than he doesn't. But I still feel like he's a character that is, for better or worse, like kind of destined to die based on his choices, whether it be like his like dark, like the dark stuff in the past that he did, whether it be his like insistence on taking Temp V, encouraging Huey to do so, and then taking it beyond the point, like Starlight said, of like, this is gonna kill you, and now it is. So I do think he will die. But kind of speaking of that, I just wanted to like real quick, and this could be a really fast thing that I could be totally off base on. But the episode 1, I believe, was the one that ended. We know that he has the mass in his head now, and they're telling us it's because of, you know, the Temp V consumption, like so much of it, so quickly. But episode 1, I think that was one that ended with like a close up on his face, and you see what looks like a worm moving through his head. Do you guys remember that? It's like, I think he's back in like Boys HQ. I think he's having a drink, I want to say. And I want to say like the last shot before credits is it like zooms in like on the side of his head, like above his ear. And at first it looks like a vein. Like you're just like, oh, I guess it's just his vein. But then it starts like moving and swirling almost like the way you would like imagine a tapeworm. And it made me go, that was another thing, kind of like what we talked about with Sage with like the bloody needle. I was like, oh, I'm not 100% sure I'm supposed to take away from this, but I guess my immediate thought when I saw that was, oh, so is the Temp V not killing him? Is there like some other character, like third party that like we don't know about, or like maybe we do know them already, that like infected him, and so it looks like Temp V is killing him, but maybe it's actually this other thing?
Yeah, I just pulled it up too, and there's another angle later on in the show where you see it moving down by his neck. So it's definitely moving on different parts of him. Which, yeah, that's cool. I didn't even notice that. So if there is another thing that's potentially killing him, that could be a fun reveal.
Yeah, because I mean, as far as we knew, it seemed like Temp V basically gave him like brain cancer, and like there's just a mass in his head that like Homelander confirmed because he could see it with X-ray vision, I guess.
Yeah, I wonder too. They've mentioned a handful of times that Ryan is the only natural born Supe. So maybe if they do flip Ryan to the good side, maybe they like synthesize a cure from his blood or something. Like maybe there is some weird funky way they can get a cure for Butcher.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, before we kind of start to close out here, do you have any more just like random general kind of thoughts on these episodes? Any other theories for the rest of this season in particular? Anything else that you've been thinking about?
Yeah, the only thing I'm excited to see how it comes up more is the Gen V season. We have a very quick line with Butcher where he tells Newman, like, I know what you guys were doing at Godokin, but I'm excited to see how those characters come in, and then also where that disease goes. Because Butcher in the post-credit scene like does know and does kind of come across the disease and is like, holy shit, this is our answer. So it hasn't come up like in a major way yet. But I'm excited to see where it goes in the back half.
I can't remember. Was that a disease that Newman specifically, like she was spearheading that project, right?
She was in an effort to, I think, keep her daughter safe.
Okay, so that's all interesting too. I mean, speaking of her daughter, also crazy scene in episode 1.
Oh, I was
their
going to say.
12-year-old daughter just massacring people.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. So Butcher, I did like that line. I was surprised, I guess, maybe that I don't know. I guess it's that weird thing of like you can't assume that everybody saw Gen V. So it's like you got to mention it, but then you also can't like fully invest in it because I guess I thought like this season would start after that initial Homelander stuff with like Butcher walking into the boys' HQ and being like, "All right, everyone, I found a fucking superhero death thing," but then it doesn't really come up. And then whenever he's talking to Newman, he's just like, "I did find it, but it's just not ready yet to kill Homelander." And you're like, "Oh, okay." So I guess we'll see what comes of that. To your point,
I know for sure we'll get a scene where it's Huey like, "Oh, we can't use the disease because of Starlight." And she's a soup and I love her.
Actually, you're right. There's 100% going to be that scene.
And then Butcher and Huey will break up again and then they'll get back together.
But then whenever Huey's dad dies, Simon Pegg, who's just collecting checks while being asleep on set, like he will die. And then like that'll force Huey to be like, "Butcher, you are also my father figure. I love you." And then they'll come back together again. But here's like just a random.
Butcher's actually going to marry Huey's mom and then give him the united parents he never had.
And then he'll
Butcher
die
will
the
rename
day after
Huey
his
Ryan.
wedding.
Well, then he'll rename Huey Ryan, and then Butcher will get what he always wanted, and Huey will get what he always wanted.
That's beautiful. Wow, I knew this show had an emotional core to it. Yeah,
at its core, it's a family show.
I think you're right. As the Deep had to learn on that save, where he kept saying like "cunt" and "fuck." They're like, "Deep, this is PG-13." Whenever he runs out of the bank, doesn't he say like, "Oh fuck," and then he's just like, "Oh dang," or something like that. So good. But yeah, some quick hits here. Because whenever like a show gives you that recap when you're starting a new season, I always try and pay attention to what they show because I'm like, everything they show in here has to come up in some way. And Austin, you asked earlier, I mean, based on this show and the Temp V not being a part of it right now, at least, and I don't think that will come back, who can actually go up against Homelander? I think that's all we talked about Ryan. I mean, based on the storyline and kind of the way they're spending time with him, that just seems like the obvious answer to me. I think kind of the X factor, and I think, Keith, you and I may have talked about this briefly, Soldier Boy. We know basically that was a guaranteed win. But then whenever Ryan ended up being involved in that scene, Butcher actually teamed up with Homelander very briefly to protect Ryan from Soldier Boy. So what do you guys think about him? This is somebody that we know is capable of killing Homelander. But whenever I was talking with Keith, I was like, I think it would be kind of weird if he came back in this season. But I don't think there's any way that Jensen Ackles doesn't come back as Soldier Boy. And he was featured pretty heavily in whenever you start season 4, he is featured heavily in the recap. So does he play any role in this season? Is that something that we have to wait on? Maybe he doesn't come back? I don't know. What were you guys thinking? Because I did find myself wondering about Soldier Boy. He is brought up a lot in these first 3 episodes.
Yeah, I think he's back in like containment to heal from blowing himself up. I think they revealed that in Gen V. So he could come back up, but also like the big kicker too with Soldier Boy is he's almost as bad or worse than Homelander because of everything he did in the 70s. So do you risk bringing him back? I mean, I could see like from the voice side of thing, like do you risk bringing him back? I could see this from like a creator side of things. If you want Homelander to actually like, if you want to film scenes where he's actually fighting people all out, Soldier Boy is the best character to bring into the show again.
Yeah. I don't know where his place is though, as far as which side he would lie on. He would hate Vought. He would just think they're a bunch of idiots, and he wouldn't want to put up with any of their shit. But he would also hate the boys and the Starlighters as well. He
definitely hates the boys now. Yeah, but it's also interesting because he would kill Homelander if given the chance. So that is kind of a different dynamic that I would be interesting to see, maybe.
Yeah, because he thought Homelander was like a groveling child, and he wasn't proud of him.
And I do think, to some degree, I do think he thought the boys would back him up on that because they kept hyping him up like, "We need you to kill Homelander." I think eventually he believed it, and then whenever like Butcher's also shooting eye beams at him, he's like, "What the fuck?" So we'll see. I have to imagine he'll play some role, whether it be this season or next. Yeah, another thing. Speaking of Gen V, do we think any of the characters from that play any? Maybe not big, but any interesting role this season? Obviously, we saw, so many. We saw Newman, we saw Ashley, we saw Homelander, we saw Butcher, we saw a bunch of like our OG characters pop up in Gen V. I guess maybe the thing that makes the most sense, and forgive me, I don't remember the characters' names, but the 2 kind of rogue agents in Gen V. The girl that had the telekinetic powers, and then you had the younger brother of like the Superman figure that then ended up going bad. So those two kind of teamed up and like killed everybody at Godolkin, but then they were praised as like the heroes. Actually, like, do they play a role in this season at all? Like, what do you guys think? Was there any Gen V crossover here besides just the death virus thing that we know about?
Well, I think there was another post-credit scene in Gen V that had them joining the Seven. So I could see, like, maybe that comes up later, too.
Yeah.
And maybe that was, like, maybe the post-credit was, like, a look ahead. But they still have some seats open, so they could join the Seven.
I was surprised, not in a bad way, but I was surprised that whenever they were doing, like, the multiple scenes of, like, all right, let's fill out the people in the Seven. I guess I just expected we would see their faces, and I was curious, like, what Homelander, or since he was involved in Godolkin, like, what they would say. But yeah, I wonder if we'll see them to any degree. Maybe they're too young to be on the Seven. Yeah. Maybe that's all it is.
I could see some of the good kids from Gen V maybe being recruited to the boys in some
That
way.
would be interesting by the end of season 5 or even this season. Do they go that direction? That could be cool too.
Maybe their roster could contain like Starlight, A-Train, and then a couple from Gen V, and then they actually have like a squad that can go up against some of the Seven. Yeah. They can't go against Homelander, but they could fight back a little bit.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's going to cover our discussion on the 3-episode premiere of The Boys Season 4. You know, it kind of sounds like we're at varying degrees when it comes to being hopeful for the rest of the season, maybe a little bit worried, but all I know is I'm very excited to keep watching this, and I hope it ends strongly and sets up a great 5th and final season. Before we close out here, though, of course, let's do some Arnie's Podcast Awards. Part of our show where we talk about something positive, negative, or something in between from whatever we just talked about. All it has to be is something that we feel is worthy of an award to some degree. So, guys, what do we have today?
Yeah, I will simply be giving the Pink Eye Award, and I will just leave my description as if you know, you know. So Congratulations to the boys for getting the Pink Eye Award.
Maybe that's all that needs to be said. Very good. Very good award.
Like I said, the show has those surprise factors. That was definitely one of them.
I love Frenchie just be like, calling the guy Pink Eye. No, Pink, like, don't get too close to me, Pink Eye.
That's funny. I'm gonna give.
Like we said, at its core, it is a family show.
Yeah. We've always said that.
We mentioned it earlier, and I'm gonna give this award. It's the "You Really Scared Me" award, and that goes to Newman's daughter. Whenever she clawed that guy's face off with the worms that came out of her face, I actually screamed at the TV. I was like, "Oh my god!" It scared the shit out of me.
Yeah. I don't think we had seen her powers before. We knew she had powers. I think there was a scene in Gen V where like Newman injects her or something, or maybe that was season 3 of The Boys, and she's just screaming, but we don't actually know what her powers are. And then this season was like, oh, we'll start and we'll show you.
The boys really need her on their side. I think she could tear up Homelander.
They should be recruiting her. Fuck A-Train. And then, it's not my award, but just because I can't believe we didn't talk about it, and that scene reminded me of it, Keith. Shout out to Kamiko's baby hand, which was just slightly too small for Starlight to catch her when she jumped out a window and then crashed into the ground. But my award, of course, is, I think you guys know this. I'm not a big Dairy Queen guy. Never really have been. Haven't frequented it too much. But I do think this show has a Dairy King, and I think that deserves an award. So my Dairy King award, of course, goes to Homelander, who really the only way he can bond with his son is to bring him glasses of milk or milkshakes after accidentally killing somebody that he looked up to. So yeah, I think Homelander is, at this point, 4 seasons in, undeniably the Dairy King.
And he still has hidden bottles of breast milk in that little cabinet.
Some fond memories for him. Cabinet where he keeps the picture of his Nazi ex-girlfriend, all of his gray pubes, his fucking like milk bottles. So funny.
Speaking of milk, there was another line in this show that caught me off guard. And Newman was asking the daughter. She was like, "Do you want to go get frozen hot chocolate from Serendipity?" And the daughter was like, "Yeah, that sounds good." I was wondering, what is frozen hot chocolate?
I missed
How does that work?
Line. I have no idea what that is.
I think she just said 10 minutes here and we'll go get hot chocolate. I don't think
No, she said frozen hot chocolate from Serendipity. I'm pretty sure those are the exact words.
I mean...
I'm pretty sure. Unless I misheard the word frozen.
As Austin knows, I trust him implicitly, but the fact... If Keith had just said, no, it was frozen hot chocolate, that wouldn't be enough for me to believe him. But now he's throwing out Serendipity. It's so specific that I think he might be right.
She did say serendipity. She said 10 minutes here and we'll go get hot chocolate from
Okay, you might be
Okay,
right.
so now
also.
it's
I
just,
thought she
it's
said
now we just don't know
hot
if Frozen
chocolate.
came up or not. Maybe we'll have to go back and watch it.
Yeah, we need to find that out.
Those are the big questions.
That's really what I want to know from this show. Did she say
Yeah.
frozen hot chocolate or regular?
All right. Well, with that, everybody, thank you all so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you hit that follow button so you never miss our upcoming content. Also, please share us with your friends if you enjoyed this episode. We really appreciate it to continue to grow our show. Please leave us reviews as well. Even if you don't write anything, leaving us a 5-star review over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever your podcast will just help us out. At the Arnies is our social, and the Arnies.transistor.fm is the website. We'll be back next Tuesday with another episode.
And lastly, we want to hear from you, so please send us a message on Instagram at the Arnies or email us thearniesmedia@gmail.com. What do you think of The Boys Season 4 so far? Anything you say we'll read on the show and react to it live on our latest episode.
That's right, everybody. Hope you're enjoying The Boys so far. Hope you're excited for the rest of the season. Hope you enjoyed our episode, of course, too. Maybe whenever we get later in the year, we can talk about the finale when that comes around. All I know is I'm excited. And anyway, hope you have a great rest of your week, and we'll catch you next time.
See ya.
As Firecracker would say, keep doing your own research.